Welcome to the August 20th, 2018 edition of the BitcoinNews.com daily radio show. We have a new episode every single day on Anchor and plenty of other platforms, and we cover the full spectrum of Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and blockchain news. I am your host, Space Marine.
What is up, everybody? Thanks for listening. This is Space Cadet. Bitcoin is sitting at $6,300 this time of the evening. It was around $6,500 a few hours ago. Space Marine.
Affirmative, Space Cadet. Bitcoin has had a pretty dull, lame day. It was up to 6,550 on Bitfinex about a day ago, and it was steady around 6,500, and then it crashed all at once to as low as 6,230 on Bitfinex. Of course, the Bitcoin price varies across the world, so it hit many different numbers today on many different exchanges, but it's mostly above 6,000 and less than maybe 7,000 on all the exchanges in the world. Now for our first story.
The CEO of Bakkt provided details on exchange missions and protocols. Space Marine, take it.
Yes, Space Cadet. The CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Bakkt Bakkt, which is a new cryptocurrency exchange that is going to be developed by the Intercontinental Exchange, which is the owner of the New York Stock Exchange. The New York Stock Exchange is the biggest exchange in the world, and the Intercontinental Exchange, ICE or ICE, owns many big stock exchanges and futures markets around the world. They are the experts at stock trading and futures, pretty much. And they're creating a cryptocurrency exchange. And Kelly Loeffler is the CEO of this exchange. I don't think they've launched yet. Maybe they have on a very small scale. I don't think they have launched yet, though. They're planning to have physical Bitcoin futures by November 2018. We're going to get into that. That's a big milestone for cryptocurrency. To quote Kelly Loeffler, she says, Bakkt is a new company designed to bring digital assets to the mainstream and help unlock the potential of this important technology. And we're looking to make the vision of wider application of digital assets a reality. So basically, we have the Intercontinental Exchange, which is the owner of the New York Stock Exchange, saying they're going to do everything they can with this Bakkt exchange to make it like it's a merge of the stock and futures markets and Bitcoin. Basically, they're bringing all the good things about mainstream stock and futures technology, and they're going to make a Bitcoin exchange out of it. And this is a lot bigger news than people are giving it credit, because Bitcoin should be going up on this news, but it's been steady or going down since this news came out. And it's huge news. We got like the biggest stock exchange operator in the world saying they're going to make the ultimate cryptocurrency exchange. It could be the biggest exchange in the world, and that's what Kelly Loeffler's talking about. She's saying she wants to find the true price of Bitcoin with this exchange. That's their goal. That's one of their missions, to find the true price. So they're basically saying outright, if you really read between the lines here, they're saying, yeah, this is going to be the biggest Bitcoin exchange in the world, the biggest cryptocurrency exchange. We will set the global price. And they're saying to do that, they're not going to have any leverage in. And they have physical Bitcoin futures contracts, which means it's actual Bitcoins backing them. Whenever they buy or sell a futures contract to a customer, they buy Bitcoins to back it, or they have a reserve of Bitcoins in collateral. So they never issue more contracts than the amount of Bitcoins they have. And that guarantees it'll find the true price of Bitcoin, because if they started issuing paper Bitcoins, and this is the similar concept of paper gold, like on COMEX, which is the biggest gold trading market, they issue up to 1,000 times more contracts paper gold than the reserves of gold in their vault. So Bakkt is saying they're not going to have any paper Bitcoins, and they're not going to have any leveraging. So on these exchanges where you can go short and long, and they probably will have short and long, they're not going to let you leverage it. Like on BitMEX, you can leverage 100 times. So you can put in 1 Bitcoin of money and leverage 100 Bitcoins. Seriously, that's really what they allow. And that creates lots of paper Bitcoins, lots of paper volume. And it actually makes the Bitcoin price lower than it should be. Bakkt is saying we want to find the true Bitcoin price, so we're going to create a clear, open channel for people to buy Bitcoin from the spot markets through our physical Bitcoin futures. And this could be the news. It's coming in November 2018. The futures are going to launch in November 2018, pending a review from the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. I think the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, will be happy to approve these physical Bitcoin futures, since the CFTC has been quite favorable towards Bitcoin in general, versus the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, which has not been favorable towards Bitcoin. But they'll probably change long term as people keep demanding Bitcoin products. Regardless, the news here is in November 2018, physical Bitcoin futures are going to launch, providing a mainstream channel for institutional investors to invest in Bitcoin in a safe way in large amounts. There's going to be more money coming into Bitcoin than ever. Right now, Bitcoin's market cap is around $110 billion.
That's correct.
And these institutional investors hold trillions of dollars. So we could be talking a Bitcoin rally like never seen before. It'll feel like that rally to 20,000, but it's going to go way beyond 20,000 once these institutional investors have an easy way to diversify their portfolios into Bitcoin. Now they're going to have a button on their stock trading platforms. Like they already have the ETN. They get the exchange traded note, which is kind of like an exchange traded fund ETF. The ETN is the one that's been approved. ETFs keep getting rejected. So that's another button. So we're getting more and more infrastructure as time goes on for institutional investors to invest in cryptocurrency. We have the ETN, the first one that was just approved. This is big news, but it's not really been gaining that much steam yet, but it'll show itself. When the rally starts, people will start buying that ETN a lot, and that ETN is backed by physical Bitcoins too. And this ETN's on NASDAQ.
It will take off.
So not only do we have an ETN, we have a ton of crypto hedge funds opening up. There's hundreds of new crypto hedge funds opening each year. There's 466 now. And this is the ground game for institutional investment and investment in general. It's creating an infrastructure where investors have many options, easy options, and safe, regulated options that are licensed to invest large amounts of money into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. So we have 466 crypto hedge funds, and that number's probably already grown since I saw it. It's rising rapidly. It's rising faster than ever. We got an ETN traded on the stock exchanges. Like, it's on the stock platforms. It's on an OTC market from NASDAQ, but it could be traded on any of the platforms. Like, Fidelity just accepted the ETN. We talked about that on another show. And now we're going to have physical Bitcoin futures in November 2018, providing a real direct route for people to buy Bitcoin on an exchange that's just as regulated as the New York Stock Exchange. So all this infrastructure is being built. It's very obvious that when the next rally starts, it's going to pick up steam rapidly. All these big investors are waiting for the rally to start. Like, they have what they need now, basically. They're waiting for the rally to start, and then it's going to go crazy. They're going to put more and more money in it. They're going to tell all their friends, look how much I'm making. They're going to, like, brag about it. And then everyone's going to invest in it really rapidly. It's going to cause, like, a bubble. Like, we had a bubble before. That means the price went up too quickly. It'll happen again. This time it'll probably go over $100,000, and plenty of experts are saying that.
We're going to be reviewing the top cryptocurrencies. Number 1, Bitcoin.
Affirmative, Space Cadet. There's not much news today. There's slow news days in crypto, especially when the market's like down and steady like this. So we're just going to be talking about some of the top cryptocurrencies on the CoinMarketCap list. Number 1 is Bitcoin. It's at a market cap of $108.5 billion. It's been much higher than that before. The price is $6,300. It's the number 1 cryptocurrency by far. And the number 1 currency, but it's not the most powerful currency yet. The USD is still stronger, but Bitcoin will overtake it. That's another story. For now, we're just going to talk about Bitcoin, how it's the most pure cryptocurrency. It was the original one launched by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009. Bitcoin has the longest standing reputation. It has like 99.9999 something percent uptime. Bitcoin is obviously the number 1 choice for institutional investors because it has the biggest market cap, it has the most trading volume, it's $3.6 billion of trading volume on the spot markets in the past day. There's probably like $10 billion of Bitcoin volume total on the spot markets, plus the over-the-counter markets, plus the derivatives markets like BitMEX total. Seriously, it probably is $10 billion every day of Bitcoin trading volume. That's by far more than Ethereum, which is number 2 at $1.4 billion, but I don't want to skip ahead in the list. So institutional investors will choose Bitcoin because they can make the trades they need to make, like $100 million or $1 billion, without too much slippage. If you do a trade like that with another cryptocurrency, it'll be so much slippage you'll lose all your profits long term. And Bitcoin is the number 1 choice for replacing fiat as the global currency because it has the most user base. It's the most pure. It's the most decentralized, honestly it is. Like they've made protocols that are more decentralized, perhaps, in coding. But Bitcoin has such a large amount of miners securing it that it's extremely secure, and it's decentralized inherently. So its decentralization is pretty secured because it has such a large hash rate. It would be like pretty much impossible for anyone to attack Bitcoin and ruin it. Like other cryptocurrencies, it's possible. Maybe not Ethereum, but the ones below that, sure, why not?
And number 2, Ethereum, which been dropping.
Affirmative, Space Cadet. Ethereum's down 10% today. Put that in perspective, Bitcoin's down 3%. This has been the trend a lot recently, and that goes back to what we said for number 1, which is Bitcoin. They're probably the number 1 currency, and the other cryptocurrencies are actually falling off pretty badly compared to Bitcoin in recent months, and especially recent weeks and recent days. Like, we're going to get into these. Bitcoin Cash is down 10%, EOS is down 11%. These are some of the top 5. So Ethereum's down 10%. It's at $273 per Ethereum. The market cap's $27.7 billion. It was way over $30 billion steadily not too long ago, so this is a pretty big drop. Ethereum's the number 1 cryptocurrency for smart contracts, which makes decentralized apps. There are smart contracts on Bitcoin, but they don't function. Like Ethereum has a lot of complexity, and it has everything you need to create decentralized apps like video games, movie sites, social media sites, anything you can think of that's an app you can make into a decentralized app on Ethereum. And the more people that make apps, the more gas and Ethereum it takes to run the apps. And Ethereum's price goes up. It has gone up a lot. It totally broke out, went extremely popular. Bitcoin had a dominance percentage of 90% and went down to like 35% to 40%. And Ethereum almost went up to the same dominance percentage as Bitcoin. So Ethereum almost became the top cryptocurrency when all these DFs exploded, plus speculation exploded. Because people could just bet on Ethereum and not even use it for what it's made for. And which is the case with any cryptocurrency. You could bet on it and not even use it for what it's designed for. So Ethereum's designed for DFs, but now the DFs are losing popularity. Like we talked about in another show, gambling sites and scam sites are like some of the number one DFs. So like the real DFs like social media and movie sites and stuff like that and games, they're not at the top anymore. And Ethereum's slowly losing popularity. So it's probably never going to overtake Bitcoin. It's a good investment choice to diversify your cryptocurrency portfolio. It has long-term potential for sure, because eventually the whole cryptocurrency market will go up a lot, like an order of magnitude, 1,000%. And Ethereum's going to go up too, and it's a good way to diversify, because the DFs might get really popular when Bitcoin's going up again. That's just the way it is. Like Bitcoin's going down, so people are losing interest in DFs, but it'll go back up. Ethereum's going to be around long-term. It's just probably not as good for institutional investment. And honestly, Charlie Lee, the founder of Litecoin, says you should buy one Bitcoin before you buy anything else. Even Ethereum, you should buy one whole Bitcoin because there's only 21 million Bitcoins total once the mining's done. In the future, entire governments will probably have like one Bitcoin if they're lucky. Like someone's going to hoard all of them, and it might be the only currency. So, well, not someone, but there's going to be a lot of wealthy people that are going to hoard a lot of Bitcoins, including some governments. Some governments are going to get on board and buy as many as they can right when this is happening, right when fiat collapses. It'll probably be the U.S. The U.S. is like everything they need to like get as much Bitcoin as they want. So some of the superpowers are probably going to accumulate most of the Bitcoin, and then, yeah, you should have one Bitcoin yourself, and then you'll be really rich. Even 0.1 Bitcoin will probably be pretty wealthy in the future.
At number 3, Ripple XRP.
Correct, Space Cadet. Ripple has a market cap of $12.5 billion. That's like 10% of the Bitcoin market cap, but it's actually not quite truthful. Because they have most of their supplies being held by Ripple Labs and the Ripple Foundation, and there's only a small amount circulating. I think they only do use the circulating supply of 40 billion Ripple for calculating the market cap. Each Ripple's worth 31 cents. There's like 40 billion, so it's like $12.5 billion total. But there's way more Ripple held by the Ripple Labs and the Ripple Foundation, and you can't mine Ripple. So basically, it's like a centralized cryptocurrency. It's not decentralized. Ripple Labs and Ripple Foundation controls the market because they could dump it at any time, and they do probably dump it slowly. I don't know, though. That's a speculation. But it's not a good position to be in to have like a centralized organization hold most of a cryptocurrency. With Bitcoin, that's not the case. With Ethereum, that's not the case. With Ripple, a centralized organization holds most of it. Most people don't even consider this a cryptocurrency when they're making lists. I would not invest in Ripple personally. Ripple might be good for cross-border transactions. Ripple has applications with banks because Ripple's actually a big company, and they're able to talk to the big banks because they have so much money. And they've been doing some deals with banks internationally to send money cross-border. So that's a good thing to do with Ripple, but as a personal cryptocurrency investor, it doesn't make sense to put your money in a currency where most of it's being held by a central organization that could dump it and take all the money out of your portfolio. Let's invest in Ripple.
Bitcoin Cash sitting at number 4, also 10.15% down.
Affirmative, Space Cadet. Bitcoin Cash is down over 10% today. Like I'm saying, these alternative cryptocurrencies, they're called altcoins. They're going down a lot compared to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's dominance percentage is back up to like 53%. It was as low as like 35% not that long ago. So it's going up, and it might go all the way up to 90%, I think. But let's talk about Bitcoin Cash briefly. Bitcoin Cash is just a fork of Bitcoin. There was a debate over the segregated witness feature of Bitcoin because Bitcoin was having a scaling problem as there were so many transactions. The transaction fees started spiking. So the community wanted to find a way to make the block size bigger. SegWit, segregated witness, we just call it SegWit. Everyone calls it SegWit. It makes the block size as high as 1.2 megabytes and also sometimes rarely as high as 2 megabytes. So it has some extra room over the previous 1 megabyte limit. It makes Bitcoin more scalable for larger transaction volumes. When the SegWit update was released onto the Bitcoin Core software, a lot of Bitcoin users chose not to adopt it, and Bitcoin Cash formed. And it's just like Bitcoin. There's no advantage over it. It has 32 megabyte blocks, and they actually have so little traffic, they only use 100 kilobytes. So they didn't have to change anything in Bitcoin Cash for that to function, because there's so little people using it compared to Bitcoin. Bitcoin Cash has a daily volume of less than 500 million. Right now it's 372 million. Might be $500 million total on all the markets combined, like the OTC and derivatives markets. I don't think Bitcoin Cash is on like BitMEX or anything like that. So they have much smaller volume than Bitcoin. They have much, and it's mostly speculative, probably. I don't think people are using this as a currency like they use Bitcoin. Just to get to the point, I think it's clear to say that if you're going to invest money in Bitcoin Cash, just invest it in Bitcoin. You're going to get a way better return, and it's a way better cryptocurrency.
EOS also dropped by 10%, a little more.
Affirmative Space Cadet, EOS is number 5. They're at $4.3 billion market cap. This was like the biggest ICO in history. They got over $1 billion in funding during their initial coin offering. They branded themselves as a version of Ethereum for commercial applications. And they're saying they're better than Ethereum. They're saying like they're a whole browser. Like Ethereum might be like a piece of software, but like they're like a whole internet browser or something. That's what EOS is saying. But they've totally declined a lot. Like right now they're at $4.73. I believe they were way over $10 before. Their market cap's $4.3 billion. It's Stellar's at $4.1 billion. For the longest time, EOS is firmly in 5th place, far behind Bitcoin Cash, and way ahead of Litecoin and Stellar. Like Litecoin and Stellar actually lapped each other. We're gonna get to those next. But EOS is actually falling so much, and Stellar is gaining relatively, that EOS is probably going to move down a place. Right now it's in 5th place. It'll probably be below Stellar really soon, maybe the next week or something. And overall, I don't like EOS because it's actually quite centralized. They have a team of block producers that meet over a conference call like every day or more than that. And they come together and they can decide to change how they mine transactions, to block people, to freeze accounts. So it's quite centralized. It's a centralized cryptocurrency. China says EOS is the number 1 cryptocurrency, Bitcoin's number 10. I think it's quite obvious. China has a very totalitarian power control government, and they like EOS because you could be totalitarian and power control of EOS. Like the Chinese government could send a memorandum to EOS saying, hey, you better freeze these accounts right now or we're going to do something to you, because EOS is actually centralized, so like it could be attacked. The whole point of decentralization is like so no one could attack you. Like, because there's nothing to attack. It's everywhere. EOS is centralized, so they got to deal with, like, demands from governments, and they can actually make bad decisions themselves. I wouldn't invest in a cryptocurrency where my funds could be frozen under any circumstances. So that's probably why it's declined, and it'll keep declining. I think it's going to fall all the way off the list. Like, it won't be big in the future. That's just my speculation.
Number 6, Stellar.
Affirmative Space Cadet. Stellar is at number 6 on the listing. It's over $4 billion right now. It's a lot higher than it was. Litecoin used to be ahead of Stellar by a lot, but now Stellar's gaining. Stellar is basically a cryptocurrency that's highly scalable. The transaction fees are less than like 1/100th of a cent. For real, they're less than that. It's way cheaper than Bitcoin for sending transactions. So it's been rising a lot. It's down 4% today, but Bitcoin's also down like 3%. And right now, it's approaching where it's going to overlap EOS too. It's probably going to be number 5 soon. And I think Stellar is going to be around long term. Like Facebook, for example, is in talks with Stellar. Like Facebook said they're not in talks, but I think they are in talks. That's just my speculation. Stellar's really good for social media sites because you can send like 1 cent of Stellar and it won't cost any transaction fees, really. So, and that could be highly scalable. Like there could be tons and tons and tons of transactions, like millions on the Stellar network, and the fees won't go up. That's just how it's designed. So I think Stellar is a good cryptocurrency for the future that will be around. It's probably going to be moving up.
Litecoin is at number 7.
Correct, Space Cadet. Litecoin has been one of the biggest cryptocurrencies since the beginning. I started in 2013. Litecoin was like the second biggest coin back then. The reason Litecoin is so popular is it because it uses the script algorithm. Bitcoin's SHA-256, and there's so many people mining SHA-256 that a bunch of people split off and said, okay, we're going to mine script, and that started with Litecoin. Because you can mine script coins of your CPU, GPU, and also they have ASICs, application-specific integrated circuits, like they do for Bitcoin. They have the same for Litecoin, but they're different ones. But it's basically miners support Litecoin. Miners like Litecoin, like individual personal miners, because Bitcoin's really becoming like, you can't mine it unless you have a big business mining for years already. That's the people mining Bitcoin. And also people that have lots of money that want to get into it, but like small miners, that's like going out of style. It's becoming obsolete for Bitcoin. But personal mining continues for Litecoin, and I think Litecoin will be popular all the way into the future. Right now, the market cap is $3 billion. The trading volume is less than $500 million a day. But I think it's going to stick around those levels, and when the whole market rallies, it'll go up accordingly, and it's going to be around long term.
Number 8, Tether.
Affirmative Space Cadet. Tether is at number 8 with a market cap of $2.7 billion, and each Tether is worth almost exactly $1. And it varies by about 1 cent. They have built-in mechanisms that make it pegged to $1. And Tether's the biggest stable coin, and like its nature, stable coin means It's tied to like the dollar. There's also stable coins for the euro, but the Tether is by far the biggest stable coin. There's actually $2.7 billion in it. And what that means is there's over $2.7 billion. For every Tether, there's $1 deposited in a bank account. And they showed their little audit they did. It wasn't an official audit, but they really do have $2.7 billion of cash. And it backs every Tether. And people use Tether worldwide where they don't have USD. Like if you have a bank account and you could deposit USD, you would just put some USD in your bank account and buy Bitcoin. But where that's not available, like in other countries, like if you're on an island somewhere, you don't have a bank account out there, you can buy some Tether and use it as the USD on the market. Like Bitfinex is the one that the major partners, they help create Tether. So like on Bitfinex, you can use the USDT, which is Tether, instead of the USD. And other major exchanges have also adopted Tether because it's so big.
Number 9, Cardano.
Affirmative, Space Cadet. I'm glad you could pronounce it correctly. What's that mean in Spanish?
Cardano.
What's it mean, though?
I couldn't tell you.
Alright, so we don't know what Cardano's name means, but they say they're a type of Ethereum. They say they're better than Ethereum. EOS says they're the commercial version of Ethereum. Cardano says they're the scientific version of Ethereum. I think Ethereum's pretty scientific, so I don't understand what's going on here. They're also down 10% today, and I think a lot of these cryptocurrencies that don't really have anything compared to Bitcoin, and they're actually copycats. So Cardano's probably, I shouldn't call it a copycat, but it was designed off the idea of Ethereum, and I don't think it does much different. So they're at a market cap of $2.4 billion. Their daily trading volume, though, is less than $100 million worldwide total, even peer-to-peer included. It's less than $100 million. So as you start going down this list, the volumes drop off like big time. Like Bitcoin's like 5,000 million of volume, and Cardano's less than 100 million in the same day.
I think Cardano was the Italian mathematician. That's what it must be under.
That makes sense, Space Cadet.
Number 10 is Monero. That's from the word money, moneda.
Thanks, Space Cadet. I did not know that. So Monero has a market cap of 1.5 billion. Its trading volume is a meager less than 50 million per day. But it's actually a pretty awesome cryptocurrency because it's a privacy coin. I don't need a privacy coin, but people that really want to be anonymous, because Bitcoin, all the transactions are displayed in a public blockchain ledger. Anyone can access it. Monero, everything's displayed in a ledger, but it's totally like incomprehensible to who's sending what and how much they're sending. So it's a privacy coin. It's an anonymous coin. Zcash is another one. It's way down the list. We're not going to get to that. We're not going that far. It's at number 20. Zcash is at $600 million. So it's like, it has like less than half the market cap of Monero, but Zcash and Monero are pretty similar. They're privacy coins. And Zcash actually has more trading volume than Monero. Zcash is over $100 million of trading volume in a day. Monero's at like 22 million listed on here, probably like 50 million in the world. Because you got to remember, a lot of Monero is probably done peer-to-peer because it's a good privacy coin. So Monero has long-term growth potential because the privacy coin is going to be needed, but it's probably not going to be traded by institutional investors that much because the nature of it is for dark net and crimes, pretty much. So institutional investors won't want to put much money in it because the governments aren't going to like it and they might not want it to be mainstream. Bitcoin's a much better option for institutional investment than any privacy coin.
IOTA at 11.
Affirmative, Space Cadet. IOTA has a market cap of $1.4 billion. And this one's important. It's the most popular and most valuable directed acyclic graph cryptocurrency, DAG. And this doesn't use a blockchain. It uses a directed acyclic graph, which is more efficient in some respects. Basically, nodes only have to reference 2 previous transactions to confirm a transaction instead of using the entire Bitcoin blockchain. We talked about that in the past show. You have to have like a 200 gigabyte Bitcoin blockchain downloaded to send any transaction or receive any transaction. IOTA, you just have to reference 2 previous transactions. That might be a few kilobytes or less than a megabyte for sure. So they're doing decent, $1.3 billion market cap. I think they're a decent investment. They're down 8% today, but it's a good way to diversify into the DAG part of the cryptocurrency world. There's other ones like Byteball, but they're way, way, way down the list. IOTA's number 1 by far for DAG cryptocurrencies. And if you have the money, if you already got your 1 Bitcoin, it's good to have some IOTA and all these other types of cryptocurrencies. We've talked about like one script coin like Litecoin, a privacy coin like Monero. You should have your DAG, IOTA. You should have your X11, which is Dash, which used to be called Darkcoin.
And number 12, Tron.
Affirmative, Space Cadet. Tron's basically trying to be like a video sharing platform that's decentralized and blockchain based. They actually acquired BitTorrent, which is one of the most popular torrenting softwares, and torrenting's like a peer-to-peer way, kind of decentralized, not purely decentralized, but it's kind of decentralized and peer-to-peer. And Tron can implement torrenting with BitTorrent. They've actually bought the whole company. So they're going to have torrenting software plus like file sharing in a decentralized way. I think it could become quite popular. It probably won't get much higher in the ranks, but it'll be around long term, I think. It was one of the most popular ICOs in Ethereum coins that was made with ERC20 before it launched onto its own chain recently and bought BitTorrent.
And number 13, Ethereum Classic.
Affirmative Space Cadet. Ethereum Classic is simply a split-off, knockoff version of Ethereum. They had a debate, just like when Bitcoin's community had a debate over SegWit and Bitcoin Cash formed. Ethereum had a debate over someone stole money from a fund that was for developers. Like, they put a bunch of money, like over 100 million, like 150 million of Ethereum into a fund for developers that were going to use Ethereum. And then $50 million of it got stolen. So Ethereum decided to roll back their blockchain and get rid of the vulnerability that caused the hack. But part of the Ethereum community said they want their currency to be immutable. Like, if you reverse a transaction, even with like a 51% fork, like Ethereum did, that's still not immutable. So this part of the Ethereum community wanted pure immutability. They created Ethereum Classic. It's very weak bit of Ethereum. It has a $1.3 billion market cap, and volume is actually quite high. It's somewhere around $300 million per day of volume per day right now. So that's pretty decent. And Ethereum's at $1.4 billion of volume and a market cap of $27.7 billion. So Ethereum's like 20 times more valuable than Ethereum Classic. But honestly, Ethereum Classic has no benefits versus Ethereum, so people are better off putting money into Ethereum than Ethereum Classic.
And number 14, Dash.
Yes, this is the last one we're going to be covering. I would love to just go through all of them, but that would be like a 10-hour show, or maybe like a 100-hour show. We'll do that eventually, over time, maybe. So Dash is the last one we're talking about. It has a market cap of $1.2 billion. It's still pretty high. The one after is number 15, Neo, has a market cap of $1.1 billion, and then everything after that is less than $1 billion. So there's only like 15 cryptocurrencies with $1 billion market cap and more. Dash is Darkcoin, and it's the best X11 coin. It used to be Darkcoin, but it's the same thing. They use masternode technology. X11 is different, so you can't use the same application-specific integrated circuits to mine Dash as you can to use Litecoin and Bitcoin. So Dash has a smaller amount of miners, and it's kept a little more profitable for personal mining operations because of this. So it's favored because it's a different type of algorithm, so it's a different mining community, and that helps miners have a way to keep some profits over time, because Bitcoin, like, they can't really mine that anymore personally. Litecoin's even hard right now. So Dash is X11, and the big companies aren't really focusing on it, so personal miners control the mining market for Dash. It's also good because it's more anonymous. That's why they used to call it Darkcoin. It's more anonymous, but it's not as anonymous as Monero and Zcash. So Monero overtook Dash a while ago. And Dash used to have like kind of like Monero's brand where like, oh, we're more anonymous than Bitcoin, but Monero is way more anonymous than the Dash and Bitcoin. So that's all we have for you today on this August 20th, 2018 edition of the BitcoinNews.com radio show. Go to BitcoinNews.com 24/7 for the full spectrum of Bitcoin, blockchain, and cryptocurrency news. If you read BitcoinNews.com, you will be an expert in no time. This is Space Marine signing out.
And this is Space Cadet. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Adios, amigos.